Okay, today's assignment is The Human Chair, 人間椅子 by Edogawa Rampo, published in 1925. Okay, so I'm going to explain the study guide. The first part of the study guide, the terms section, I sort of went overboard with terms. I'm not going to read all of them here, but you should know a little bit about them, so read them on your own time. The first is Edo nonsense. So a lot of times when you read studies or papers on this writer, Edogawa Rampo, Japan's great sort of mystery writer of the early first half of the 20th century, this term comes up quite a bit, Edo nonsense, which is sort of a literary and artistic movement in the 1920s and 30s that devoted itself to explorations of eroticism, sexual corruption, decadence, the perverse, the background, and the absurd. Okay, so you see elements of these in most of his works. But at the same time, it's not really helpful to just simply talk about these ideas because that everybody talks about when they assess his works. These are sort of teisets or just conventional frameworks for thinking about his works. They kind of lead you from actually doing serious analysis of the works themselves. So when you write your essays, don't worry about what other people have said. I mean, know what other people have said about these works, and then do something else. That's sort of the point of literary scholarship, to question the frameworks of analyzing famous works. So and there's quite a lot to explore in this story too. There's sort of revolutionary or political messages that are embedded within it, sort of commentary on the class society of the time and whatnot. Okay, the next term on your study guide is alienation. I give sort of a Marxist definition of alienation, just to review that. The commodity. So in this work we have the main character of the story producing chairs, right? He's a sort of a highly sophisticated artisan who produces these exquisite chairs but is unable to enjoy them. And they're immediately taken from him and sent to the wealthy who are able to afford to purchase his chairs, right? And he's too poor to buy them, so he can't ever enjoy that which he makes, right? And so there's definition of the commodity, exchange value, all that there. Fetishism of the commodity, we see that in the story too. Definition, reification, I have a definition there, but okay, just review that if you want. You don't really need to. The important part of this study guide is the second section, the study questions, and there are 11 questions in all this time. Okay, so answer all of the following to the best of your ability. Number 1, describe the narrative structure of the work. What subgenre or subgenres of novel might this work be classified as, right? So Edogawa Rampo is usually described as a detective or a mystery writer, but are there any other genres that might fit this work? Number 2, describe the personality and circumstances of the author of the letter, right? What is his relation to the world, to his craft, to his creations, right? So this is the chairmaker. Describe him, his situation, his circumstances, etc., etc. Number 3, this is a very important question. Does the work have a political message? Cite evidence to support your answer, right? And we have read several works already in this course that were written in the 1920s. So I've mentioned in other videos that the political situation and the economic situation in Japan and indeed the entire world is not very good at this time, right? You have class divisions, increased poverty, the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. You have the rise of proletarian literature. You have the real potential of revolution breaking out in all the major industrial nations, right? So that background is sort of implied in this work, right? So in that context, so Edogawa Rampo, I should mention, is not typically affiliated with the proletarian movement. He's not an avowedly left-wing writer. However, that doesn't really matter, right? You can be a neutral or even a right-wing or a fascistic writer and still sort of unconsciously or implicitly address things that are very important to the world in which you live, right? So does this work have a kind of underlying or a hidden political message or revolutionary message? Cite evidence to support your answer. Number 4. Describe the man's interest in and interactions with women, right? This is where the perversion aspect comes in. In what ways does his interest in women change? What is to account for the change, right? So he's too poor to ever be able to date these wealthy women that come in and sit on top of him while he's hiding in his chair. So he's only able to encounter these women through the mediation of the chair that he makes, right? So discuss that aspect. And number 5, how does the man perceive the world while in the chair? Which of his senses are most acute, right? So the chair is that which is able to provide him access to things that are normally inaccessible to him, right? So how does he see the world while inside the chair? Which senses are most acute? Number 6, how does this work an instance of the Edo-Guro nonsense movement that I described in the terms above? Identify and describe its perverse and its grotesque elements, right? So there's an element of the shocking in this work. I think Edogawa Rampo enjoyed to shock his readers and to prod them and to kind of at times offend them. What are the offensive or grotesque elements in this work? Number 7. After the man's relocation to Yoshiko's house, how does he go about eliciting her affection? Right, so he's still inside the chair. He's purchased while inside the chair. The chair is relocated to Yoshiko's house. How does he go about eliciting her affection? Number 8. Discuss the ending. Does the second letter assuage Yoshiko's fears, or does she still suspect that the man is inside her house? Which letter are we to believe? So of course there's the possibility that he just simply made up the whole story. That he's not in fact inside of the chair, right? That he's simply trying to show off and to impress her and to show off his ability to write convincing fiction. Alright, so consider those questions. Number 9. In his article, Panorama of Enlightenment, Kaiko no Panorama, the literary scholar Maeda Ai argues that human relations in Japan from the Meiji period on have been mediated through objects, particularly Western objects. How might this work be read as a statement or a meditation or a critique about this fact of post-Meiji life, right? So this is not this observation obviously is not restricted to Japan. It's sort of a defining characteristic of modernity, right? Humans no longer relate to each other directly. They relate to each other through commodities, through capital, through money, through these sort of things, right? Through material objects. So explain that question in detail. Number 10 is about the confession, kokohaku. There's a whole genre of Japanese literature called kokohaku shousetsu. The watashi shousetsu, I novel genre usually hinges on some sort of confession, right? So confession is central to a lot of modern Japanese fiction, and confession appears in this story as well, right? So the notion or literary device of the confession is at the very heart of Japan's modern literature, particularly in so-called naturalist or shizen shugi literature. How does this work? First, employ this device or notion of the confession, and second, how does it problematize the notion of the confession? Okay, it's a bit of an abstract question that forces you to think a bit. Number 11, final question. It is a truism that one's mode of reading will affect one's interpretation of a work. How does this story thematize or confirm this truism? right? Also a sort of abstract question that forces you to think. Alright, so answer these questions to the best of your ability. I think this story, this work has actually been made into a film, I think in the 1970s. So if you're interested in the film version of this, look on Google and it should come up. That's about all I have to say about this one. Okay, if you have any questions, send me an email. Bye bye.